The rain had a way of making everything look lonelier. Marcus stood under the flickering streetlight outside the downtown bus station, watching droplets chase each other down the cracked glass of the shelter. His cardboard sign, now soggy and barely readable, slumped against his worn backpack. "Anything helps. God bless." The words had lost their power hours ago, just like his hope. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, and the gnawing emptiness in his stomach had become a constant companion, almost comfortable in its familiarity. But it was the cold that really got to him tonight, seeping through his 3 layers of donated clothes, settling deep in his bones like an old wound that wouldn't heal. That's when he first saw her. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old, standing with her mother at the crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. The little girl wore a bright yellow raincoat that seemed to glow against the gray evening, and she clutched a small teddy bear under one arm. But it wasn't her appearance that caught Marcus's attention. It was the way she looked at him. Not through him, like most people did. Not past him, pretending he didn't exist. She looked directly at him, her dark eyes wide with something that looked like recognition, as if she'd been searching for him specifically. The light changed. Her mother tugged her hand, eager to get home, to get dry, to get back to whatever warm dinner waited for them. But the little girl planted her feet and wouldn't move. Marcus watched as she said something to her mother, her small voice lost in the sound of traffic and rain. The mother shook her head. The girl insisted, pointing. The mother sighed, glanced at her watch, then finally relented. They crossed the street toward him, and Marcus instinctively straightened up, trying to look less desperate, less defeated, less like the cautionary tale he knew he'd become. The mother hung back, protective, but allowing her daughter this moment. The little girl approached without fear, her sneakers splashing through puddles. "Hi," she said simply. "What's your name?" "Marcus," he replied, his voice rough from disuse. He couldn't remember the last time someone had asked his name. "I'm Lily," she smiled. And it was the kind of smile that children give before the world teaches them to be suspicious. "Are you hungry?" The question pierced through his carefully constructed armor. He wanted to lie, to preserve some shred of dignity, but his body betrayed him. His stomach growled audibly, and Lily giggled. "I'll take that as a yes." She turned to her mother. "Mom, can we?" The mother, a tired-looking woman in hospital scrubs, met Marcus's eyes. He saw her calculating, weighing compassion against caution, kindness against common sense. Finally, she nodded. "There's a diner across the street. Come on." Marcus started to protest. "I can't. I don't have—" "Nobody asked if you could." Lily interrupted with the blunt honesty only children possess. "We're just going to eat dinner together. That's all." The diner was one of those old-fashioned places with red, vinyl booths and a checkerboard floor, the kind that served breakfast all day and where the coffee was always hot. Marcus hadn't been inside a restaurant in 8 months, and the warmth hit him like a physical force. He slid into the booth across from Lily and her mother, acutely aware of how out of place he looked, how the other diners glanced his way and quickly looked away. "I'm Sarah," the mother said, extending her hand across the table. Lily's mother. "I'm a nurse at County General." Marcus shook her hand, surprised by the firmness of her grip, the lack of hesitation. "Thank you for this. You didn't have to—" Lily insisted. Sarah smiled at her daughter. And when Lily insists on something, she's usually right. "It's annoying, actually." "It's my superpower," Lily announced proudly. She'd placed her teddy bear on the table between them, positioned so it could see everyone. "That's Mr. Buttons. He helps me decide when people need help." The waitress came, an older woman named Dolores according to her name tag, and if she had any judgment about Marcus's appearance, she kept it to herself. Sarah ordered for all of them, burgers, fries, soup to start, hot chocolate for Lily, coffee for herself and Marcus. When the soup arrived, Marcus had to force himself to eat slowly, to not betray just how desperately hungry he was. "What happened?" Lily asked between sips of her hot chocolate. "How did you end up outside?" "Lily!" Sarah's voice held a note of warning. "That's not polite to—" "It's okay," Marcus interrupted. He'd spent so long being invisible that the directness of the question felt oddly refreshing. "I lost my job about a year ago. Factory closed down, moved production overseas. I couldn't find work, fell behind on rent, then my car broke down. It's like dominoes, you know? Once the first one falls, they all go down. Lost my apartment, lost my dignity, lost my way. Did you lose your family too? Lily asked softly. Marcus set down his spoon. I have a daughter. Had a daughter, I mean. She's 19 now. We haven't spoken in 2 years. She's at college in California, doing great things. Her mother, my ex-wife, made sure of that. Made sure she didn't have to see her dad like this. That's sad, Lily said. I bet she misses you. I hope she doesn't think about me at all, Marcus replied, surprised by the honesty of his own words. It's easier that way. The burgers came huge and perfect, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. Marcus tried to memorize every detail. The taste of the food, the warmth of the diner, the sound of Lily humming to herself as she ate, the way Sarah kept glancing at her phone as if expecting an important call. Can I ask you something? Sarah said finally. And you can tell me it's none of my business. Sure. Why don't you go to a shelter? There are programs, resources. I tried, Marcus admitted. The shelters are full by 6 o'clock most nights. You have to get in line at 4, and if you're working odd jobs trying to scrape together a few dollars, you miss the window. The programs all want addresses, phone numbers, documentation I don't have anymore. It's like the system is designed for people who aren't quite desperate, enough to actually need it. Sarah nodded slowly. I see that at the hospital. People who wait until it's an emergency because they can't navigate the system, when it's just a problem. Lily had finished her burger and was now carefully drawing on her paper placemat with crayons the waitress had brought over. She was drawing 3 figures, a tall one, a small one, and a medium one, standing under a bright yellow sun. That's us, she explained, noticing Marcus watching. That's you and me, and Mom. And that's the sun because you looked cold outside. Something broke in Marcus then, some final wall he'd been maintaining. His eyes burned, and he looked away quickly, blinking hard. Thank you, he managed. For the drawing. For all of this. We're not done yet, Lily announced. She looked at her mother with those insistent eyes. Mom, you know what we should do. Sarah sighed, but she was smiling. Lily, we talked about this. We can't just... Please? Lily's voice held such pure hope that it was impossible to resist. You said yourself that the spare room is just sitting there empty. And you're always saying we should help people when we can. Marcus held up his hands. Wait, I'm not following. We have a spare room, Sarah said slowly, as if thinking through the logistics even as she spoke. Above our garage. It's small, but it has a bed, a bathroom, heat. I've been meaning to rent it out, but I keep putting it off. Lily thinks... She trailed off, looking at Marcus directly. How are you with yard work? What? Yard work. General maintenance. I work 12-hour shifts at the hospital, and I'm a single mom. My yard looks like a jungle. The gutters are clogged. There's a fence that needs painting. I keep meaning to hire someone, but I never get around to it. If you're willing to do that work, we could arrange something. Room in exchange for labor. Marcus stared at her, searching for the catch, the angle, the inevitable disappointment. You don't know me. I could be dangerous? A criminal? Sarah's voice was matter-of-fact. I'm a good judge of character. I have to be, in my line of work, and Lily's never been wrong about people. She has this uncanny ability to see who someone really is, underneath everything else. If Mr. Buttons approves, then that's good enough for me. Mr. Buttons definitely approves, Lily said, holding up the teddy bear as evidence. I don't understand, Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. Why would you do this? Sarah was quiet for a moment, stirring her coffee absently. 3 years ago, I was in a bad place. My husband had just left. Lily was 6. I was drowning in debt and depression. A woman at my church, I barely knew her, gave me $500 and said, pass it forward when you can. She saved my life with that gesture, that trust. This is me passing it forward. Marcus felt tears running freely down his face now, and he didn't try to stop them. I'll work hard. I promise. I'll earn this. I know you will, Sarah said simply. But tonight, let's just finish dinner. Then we'll go home, get you settled, and tomorrow we'll figure out the details. They stayed in the diner until closing, talking about everything and nothing. Marcus learned that Lily wanted to be a veterinarian, that Sarah had been a nurse for 12 years, that they both loved old movies, and had a tradition of watching one every Friday night. He told them about his daughter, about how she'd loved butterflies as a child, about the life he'd lost and the man he'd been before the dominoes started falling. When they finally left, the rain had stopped, and the night air smelled clean and new. Marcus followed them to their car, still half convinced this was a dream he'd wake up from, back on the cold street corner with his cardboard sign. But it wasn't a dream. Sarah drove them to a modest house in a quiet neighborhood, and she showed Marcus to the room above the garage. It was small, as she'd said, but it was warm and dry and safe. There was a bed with clean sheets, a window that looked out over a garden that did indeed need work, and a door that locked from the inside. "There's a shower through there," Sarah pointed. "Towels in the cabinet. Help yourself to whatever you need. We'll talk more in the morning." Lily appeared in the doorway in her pajamas, clutching Mr. Buttons. "Good night, Marcus," she said. "I'm glad we found you." "I'm glad you found me too," Marcus replied, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. After they left, Marcus stood in the center of the small room for a long time, just breathing, just being. Then he showered, the hot water a luxury he'd forgotten, and lay down on the bed. It was the first time in 8 months he'd slept in an actual bed, under an actual roof with actual hope for tomorrow. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought about Lily's drawing, about the 3 figures standing under the bright sun. He thought about second chances and the incredible power of a child's compassion. He thought about how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can rebuild an entire world. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Marcus smiled. The next morning, Sarah knocked on his door at 7:30 with a cup of coffee and a list of projects for the yard. They worked out an arrangement, room and board in exchange for 20 hours of work per week, with the understanding that Marcus would look for paid employment as well. Sarah had contacts at the hospital, people who might need extra help, legitimate work that could lead to something permanent. But more than the practical arrangements, more than the shelter and food and second chance, what changed Marcus was the simple fact that someone had seen him, not as a problem to be solved or an obstacle to avoid, but as a person, as someone worthy of dignity and trust and possibility. Over the following months, Marcus transformed the yard into something beautiful. He painted the fence, cleared the garden, fixed everything that was broken. He got a part-time job at a warehouse, then a full-time position with benefits. He opened a bank account, bought new clothes, started putting money away, and through it all, Lily remained his friend and champion. The little girl in the yellow raincoat who had refused to walk past someone in need. She helped him in the garden, told him jokes, included him in their Friday movie nights. She made him remember what it felt like to matter. One evening, almost 6 months after that rainy night at the bus station, Marcus made a phone call he'd been building courage for. His hands shook as he dialed the number he'd memorized but never forgotten. "Hello?" His daughter's voice, so familiar and so foreign all at once. "Jasmine? It's Dad." There was a long silence and Marcus almost hung up. But then, "Dad?" "Oh my God, Dad, where are you?" "Are you okay?" "I'm okay," he said, and he realized it was true. "I'm better than okay. I have so much to tell you." They talked for 2 hours that night. And Jasmine cried, and Marcus cried, and they began the slow work of rebuilding what had been broken. She came to visit a month later, meeting Sarah and Lily, seeing the small room above the garage and the beautiful garden and the man her father had become again. "Thank you," Jasmine said to Lily, hugging the little girl tight. "Thank you for seeing my dad when everyone else just looked past him." Lily smiled that pure, unguarded smile. "Mr. Buttons knew," she said simply. "He always knows." Years later, Marcus would stand in that same garden on a summer afternoon, surrounded by people he loved, Sarah, who had become his closest friend, Lily, now a teenager volunteering at an animal shelter, Jasmine and her new husband, and a whole community of people who had come into his life after that. Rainy night changed everything, and he would remember that sometimes salvation comes in the smallest packages. Wearing a yellow raincoat, asking the simplest questions. "What's your name? Are you hungry?" Sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to look away, who insists that every life matters, who understands that we're all just dominoes that sometimes fall and sometimes need someone to set us upright again. Her name was Lily, and she taught Marcus what he'd forgotten in his darkest moments. that the world is full of darkness, yes, but it's also full of light. And sometimes that light comes from the most unexpected places, shining bright enough to lead someone home.